Hello Gates. For decades, he was the powerful, quiet type that Hollywood loved. A man who didn't say much, didn't explain himself, and didn't care what other people thought. He played cops, criminals, warriors, and lone wolves who lived by their own rules on television. But there was another tale going on behind the scenes, one that went hidden for years because of celebrity, power, and silence. And only later did the whole vision start to come together. We're going to speak about Clint Eastwood today and the painful things he kept secret for years. A lot of people think they know Clint Eastwood. The squint. The voice that sounds like gravel. The famous line, "Go ahead, make my day." But what if the actual story isn't about the parts he played, but rather the life he lived when the cameras weren't rolling? What if the man Hollywood hailed for being disciplined and in control was actually leaving a trail of broken relationships, secret children, and emotional remoteness that didn't come to light until much later? This is where the story starts. Clint Eastwood was born on May 31, 1930, amid the Great Depression, when people had to be strong just to stay alive. His family moved around a lot to find work, which made him who he is now. By the time he entered Hollywood in the 1950s, he had already learned how to keep his emotions locked down. Silence wasn't just a personality trait, it was armor. After years of tiny parts, his career eventually burst in the late 1950s with the TV series Rawhide. But genuine superstardom arrived in the 1960s with Sergio Leone's Man with No Name trilogy, followed by Dirty Harry in the 1970s. Clint Eastwood became the symbol of masculine dominance. Calm. Cold. Untouchable. While spectators appreciated his on-screen control, his real life was anything but orderly. In 1953, Eastwood married Maggie Johnson. To the public, they were a steady Hollywood couple. What most people didn't know at the time was that Clint openly maintained many relationships during the marriage. Years later, Johnson would explain that she endured affairs because she believed she had no real alternative. Divorce wasn't just emotionally difficult, it might terminate a woman's social position in that era, especially when married to a powerful man. During those same years, Clint Eastwood fathered children outside his marriage, children he did not publicly acknowledge for decades. One of the most striking cases is Lori Murray, a daughter born in 1954 from a brief connection Eastwood had before marrying Johnson. Lori was given up for adoption, and for much of her life, she didn't know who her biological father was. Eastwood himself apparently kept this secret not only from the public, but from members of his own family. It wasn't until many years later, long after he was ensconced as a Hollywood legend, that their link became revealed. This pattern repeated itself. Relationships overlapped. Partners came and went. Children were born into challenging situations. In the 1970s and 1980s, Eastwood had long-term relationships with actresses like Sandra Locke, which subsequently grew bitter and explosive. Locke accused Eastwood of emotional abuse and career sabotage after their split, claiming he promised roles he never delivered and then blocked her out professionally. Their court struggle in the late 1980s startled Hollywood, especially when Locke disclosed how deeply confined and alienated she felt during their relationship. What made these stories so upsetting to many was not only the infidelity or concealment, but the emotional estrangement. Several of Eastwood's children have spoken frankly about how unavailable he was as a father. Some described him as nice but distant, giving but emotionally absent. Others stated they struggled for years to feel recognized or acknowledged by him. These weren't tabloid rumors, they were first-hand recollections that emerged slowly, often long after the damage was done. And yet, during all of this, Clint Eastwood's career just became stronger. In the 1990s and 2000s, he remade himself as one of Hollywood's most recognized directors. Films like Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and Gran Torino received critical praise and Academy Awards. He was acclaimed for his depth, his moderation, his wisdom. Ironically, many of his works tackled themes of remorse, moral reckoning, and the cost of emotional repression, the very things people now recognize in his own life. Eastwood rarely addressed the controversies directly. When queried about his relationships, he generally brushed them aside or framed them as private concerns. In one interview, he said he had lived by his own standards and didn't believe in traditional expectations. To him, honesty meant not pretending to be somebody he wasn't. To others, the explanation rang hollow, especially to those who felt injured or erased along the way. As the years passed, things began to shift. Eastwood slowly acknowledged more of his children publicly. He appeared at events with them. Family photos surfaced. There was no huge apology tour, no emotional confession, but there was a subtle shift toward realization. Some regarded it as growth. Others believed it arrived too late. So what does all of this mean? Was Clint Eastwood a villain hiding behind celebrity, or a severely damaged man formed by his era, his upbringing, and unbridled power? The truth, as difficult as it is, undoubtedly sits somewhere in between. He was a man who desired independence above all else, even when that freedom came at the cost of others' stability and mental safety. Hollywood enabled him. Society excused him. And for decades, silence sheltered him. Today, Clint Eastwood is in his 70s, still directing, still working, still appreciated. His legacy is complicated. On one hand, he's one of the finest filmmakers and actors in American history. On the other, his personal life poses uncomfortable questions about accountability, masculinity, and the stories we choose to celebrate. The broader lesson here isn't simply about one man. It's about what happens when talent protects behavior from criticism. It's about how power may delay truth, but never eliminate it. And it's about how the picture someone portrays to the world can be profoundly different from the influence they have on the people closest to them. In the end, Clint Eastwood's narrative reminds us that legends are still human, quiet can cover a lot, and truth has a way of surfacing even decades later. So now I want to hear from you. Does artistic grandeur excuse personal failures? Can someone be both iconic and severely flawed? And when does quiet become complicity?